Hello, and I'm back here again with Mark, Jean Christopher, Hubert Noel, and myself, Samantha Ellen Lambert. And today, Mark is going to talk to us about learning to eat and sleep in the world of fact and fiction.
Indeed, David Wynn-Miller and I am always putting out videos saying fact and fiction. What is the fiction world, the fiction courts, the fiction governments, the fiction banks? And that of course, is enough to confuse most people because they believe that they're living in the world of concrete money, in the world of fair games in the court systems, that they have control over their own sweat equity, but they don't. It's actually more of a dangling participle verb rather than anything else. So let's explore this world of fiction first, okay? One element one has to completely and utterly segment themselves from is what the world of fact and fiction is. And I'm going to speak about fiction first because that is the world that I and most people have come to think of as being the world of facts. So let's just take one element of the banking industry. When you are having a bank account, what is essentially happening is that you are depositing your money, okay? And this is the actual mechanism. You are depositing your money into a bank account. That bank account is actually the custody of the bank itself. That means it's a custodial position, like a custodial sentence, like going to prison. It's a custodial sentence. Sentence means a duration. So when you make this deposit, you're actually giving it up jurisdiction to another organization that essentially has severed you from accessing your money or not accessing your money. That you guys understand, okay? Because the banks have always can refuse to give you the money. Witness Greece, witness the run on the banks, and so many of the banks at this moment are not performing. They are putting obstacles in people's ways so they don't access their money, as it were. Not only is it a position of custodial, but the money itself is considered you to be a creditor. What that means is that when you put your money in the bank, they are making you the creditor of the bank, okay? Which means that I am giving them credit. And when somebody gives you credit, what they're saying to you is that we think that you are credit worthy, trustworthy. So when you put your money into the bank, not only are they taking custodial sentence over it, they're also saying to you that you are voluntarily saying to us that you think that the bank, which is us as it were, is trustworthy and creditworthy. So you are becoming the creditor. Once you have given them money, it's now considered an unsecured loan. An unsecured loan, which means there is no terms and conditions in your deposit to the bank. In other words, you have not told them what your terms and conditions are for them to be able to take custody of your money and also for you to make them feel creditworthy. And because you have done nothing else, you essentially have given the bank an unsecured loan. And because it's unsecured, it means it has no terms and conditions put onto that loan, i.e., well, I'm not going to give it to you as a deposit or as an unsecured loan or as a creditor, but I'm going to give it to you as a person that's going to keep it safe. And these are my terms and conditions that if you mess up, you have to pay me such and such a money. That's the way in the world of facts should happen, because when you have a merging of partners, like a person putting money into a bank, that's a partnership, that's a corporation. Just as a man asking a woman to marry her, that's a corporation. It's both ways. But if I ask the woman to get married and she says yes, and she doesn't put any of her terms and conditions, what she wants from me, then of course I'm free to do what I want to do. And people can imagine these things. You have just woken up to the fact you've been living in Gaga land, in a different world, under the world of presumption and assumption. And that is the beginning of what is known as the fiction world. Okay? The fiction world is another word for saying that you have so much of presumption and assumption in your mind as to what is actually happening in the world of facts, that the banks, the politicians, the lawyers, the courts have successfully removed your ability to be anything of a factual man and woman, i.e., controlling their own lives, and then taken them into the world of presumption and assumption. And that world is attached directly to another analogy, which I'm going to give you as well. Now, we all know the analogy of a donkey that has a carrot dangling in front of it. Now, what is the horror of this game? The dangling carrot is representative of the presumption and assumptions that human beings have, just as the donkey has. And this is how the mechanism now works with the farmer and the donkey. The donkey has this carrot dangling in front of it because the farmer wants the donkey to move forward. In other words, create energy. And when the donkey is moving forward, there's a plow behind the donkey to plow the land. And the donkey is moving in the promissory note, in the promissory carrot, in the promissory world of presumption and assumption. Then when it walks and walks and walks and walks, because it's none the wiser as to when it will get this carrot, is essentially plowed the entire field. That carrot, ladies and gentlemen, is the identical analogy that the general public has with politicians, with the court systems, with the lawyers, with the politicians, all of which are professional liars. That carrot, just like the promissory notes that are issued and given back to the banks, is a dangling participle verb. In other words, it's only in your mind. It's only in your mind that you actually have something solid and factual within a pository system of banking. Full stop. Now, let me give you another example. The word that you have is what creates your contracts and the power that you have. In other words, my word is my honor. My word is my bond. The politicians, the judges, and the courtroom systems, and the lawyers and the solicitors, what they are doing is they're practicing giving you the illusion that they are creating a bond with you. My word is my bond with you, by giving you the illusion that you are an active participant within this bond system. And because you are under the presumption and assumption that the courtrooms are fair, that the politicians are speaking truthfully, and when you take an oath, which is to swear, blaspheme, your allegiance to a flag or a gospel or a Bible, whatever you call it, it's all under the presumption and assumption. And there the court systems get you to believe, and repeating myself, that you have a bond with them, that they have a bond with you, a fiduciary care with people that have put their trust in them. But of course, the liars lie, the politicians lie. And David Wynn-Miller, what he said to me when I had to deal with judges is, if his lips are moving, he's lying to you. And that is what all the politicians are doing as well, because they're all one club out of the judiciary globally. They're all one club. They are lying to you. Okay? And the general public, just like with the banking system, just like with the donkey and the carrot and the farmer, is under the presumption of assumption that the words that's coming out of their mouths actually carry any weight, like the weight that you and I would carry when we give our word to create that bond, whether that with verbal contract or whether that's on paper. That is why the solicitors are known as licensed prostitutes. Because if I get caught and the police officer or the police constable writes out a ticket that we've witnessed Mark Kishon Christopher soliciting in the street corner, what does it mean? It means I'm practicing prostitution without a license. So it looks like I need a license to be a liar. So I have given everybody here listening to this 3 examples of what the world of presumption and assumption is. And when you're in that world, all of your ability to control the facts in your life, i.e., pen on paper, your God-given, your creator's seal, your ability to create bonds, your ability to create factual things, now become just an illusion that you ever had any control of these things, because the courtrooms are professional reapers, harvesters. The politicians are professional liars, giving you a sense of security by lying. And the solicitors have no bond with you because they're licensed prostitutes. And the courtrooms wear black in color to honor the dead, you being the dead. And then what comes out of their mouth is so much lies that, as David said, if his lips are moving, he's lying to you. How many of you out there actually have any control of your bank accounts with the bail-ins and the bailouts? How many of you have a bond relationship with your politicians or a trust relationship? You don't. How many millions and billions of yous have been walking into this bank not knowing that you are handing over their money, which is called a deposit, which means nothing, no deposit, no positive thing, and that you are thinking of the bank as a credit-worthy institution, so you're a creditor, and that when that happens, when you're putting your money, your representation of your sweat equity into this bank, that the bank is actually taking your money unconditionally because you have not put your conditions in. And that, of course, means it's an unsecured loan, which means they are not obliged to do anything with it that's of a safety mechanism. In other words, do safe banking, safe investments, keep it safe. You essentially are handing over your money to them. And of course, as the millions of transactions that take place reinforce the idea that people are actually authorizing the transactions and the movements of money. That's the illusion that they have. It is the banks that are moving the money around to give you the illusion that you are in control of it. As Abraham Lincoln said, you cannot lie to all the people all the time, which means that you can lie to some of the people some of the time and make billions and trillions of pounds on it. Just as a farmer can get his entire land plowed, a whole day of plowing on the promise of that the donkey will get a carrot. And yes, at the end of the day, it will get a carrot. And that is the image that the donkey will be having fixed into its brain on the next day, because it will plow the land again on the promise that it will get a carrot. And that's what the banks are doing. They're giving you like 0-something% interest on the back of your unsecured loan that you gave them. That is three concrete examples of what the world of fact and fiction is. And what I'm saying to the general public is that I have now taught you how the mechanism of fiction works, how the shadow game works, and I've educated you to be able to take control of it by going to my website and have a looking at the mechanisms of how you can create your own terms and conditions. You need to come out of the world of the dangling participle verb of the fiction world.
Mark, you mentioned that whenever their mouth is moving, they are lying to you.
Yes.
So from that premises, most of the cases, it's the opposite of what they say. So if they say, we will take care of you and give you this, it's usually the other way around, that we will take it from you.
Yeah. So I think what you're basically saying, which is going to be another talk, is how to use mirrors. What these people do is they take this fact and they lie about it. And once you lie about it and convince the general public that this fact has moved into this fact, and once you accept the lie, that becomes the dangling participle verb. Another word for a dangling participle verb is the shadow that I am casting on this wall because of my pen. Okay, so let's have a look at a dangling participle verb. You see that shadow, ladies and gentlemen? That's the shadow world, the dangling participle verb. What do we call this in banking?
Shadow banking, that's
banking.
Right.
And who controls the shadow banking? The puny judges and the puny politicians. You see the continuation of evidence, ladies and gentlemen. Look at it. This is the world that you guys are living in. You need to come out of this and take control.
Say, like you were talking about, putting your terms and conditions to the bank. So you go ahead and you do that, and they disagree with your terms and conditions. So you could be going back and forth with your terms and conditions. No, how would that work?
If they can't satisfy your terms and conditions, which would be nominal, hey, which means when I put my money in, I'm not surrendering it. And also when I take my money out, it's my money. And I'm not giving you the money as a loan or what they call a unsecured loan. And all of these things. And if you don't agree to it, then they are just there to take your money. In other words, they are thieves. These people are not banks. They're masquerading as banks. They are not politicians. They are masquerading as politicians. They are not judges. They are masquerading as judges. They are not broadcasters. They are not journalists. They are masquerading as journalists. When you masquerade as a journalist, you become a reporter. Did you know a reporter cannot report a single fact? He can only report on people's opinions of a fact. In other words, a correspondent will always check the facts to see if they're accurate. And a reporter will only report on the opinions of a fact from a third party, what they call shadow organizations, shadow journalism, shadow banking, shadow chancellor, shadow government, shadow. Essentially, another example is a journalist will check the facts, a correspondent will check the facts, which is the world of facts, and a reporter will check on nothing, as in a reporter means no port, which means he's not going to port anything. RE means no. Port, which means like Port Authority, which means he has no authority. And that's controlled by Fox News, yeah, and so many of the fictional newspapers. And that's how they get the general public into the world of presumption and assumption and into the world of lies, which is a world of fiction.
So where would people find the facts? Where would they go to find true facts?
You just cross-reference what they're saying. So at the moment, the politicians are talking about COVID, which means that they are controlling the narrative. But what they don't ever tell you is two things: whether they're speaking in the Queen's English because that's the language of their system, or if their language has actually any qualification, which means are they telling you they're speaking in Oxford, Cambridge, or any other language, or are they just creating dangling participle verbs, which is another word for poetry? And of course, they are always speaking as if COVID really exists, as if a virus really exists. But what the general public will have to do is cross-reference it by saying, does COVID exist? Does COVID exist? Does such a virus as COVID virus exist? And the answer will always keep coming up as no. No.
Yeah.
Why? Because COVID virus has a patent on it. You cannot take out a patent on something that already exists in nature. You can only take out a patent. You can only take out a patent on something that is man-made. And if man has made a virus, what's that called? That's called chemical germ virus warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the jurisdiction of the military. So if Bill Gates says that he has interest in these COVID vaccines and in the COVID patent viruses, i.e. Microsoft, they're essentially telling you they're practicing germ warfare. And if they did that, the military would immediately step in and put them in prison for practicing germ warfare.
So why isn't the military doing that?
Because it doesn't exist. That's the cross-reference. You know, it's like, why does the judge in a court sit outside of the well of the court? It's because that thing, that puny, is never in court. They're out of the well of the court. That means they're not participating within the well of the court. They are participating only as spectators and hecklers. And that's all he is. The judge is a puny, a politician is a puny, a reporter is a puny. All of these fiction, shadow organizations are puny things.
Mark, what about the criminal investigative journalist? Would that apply here?
If they are actually doing some sort of research or searches to qualify the statements, they would become known as factual journalists and correspondents. That's why you have two different names for the people that purportedly do the same thing. Yeah, right. They are two different worlds. Reporters are in the world of fiction, journalists and correspondents are in the world of facts. Because a journalist has to take an oath. They have to take an oath.
Ah, I see, an oath.
Yeah, a journalist don't need a reporter doesn't need to take any oath because he is just an opinionator. That's why you don't see the judge's oath on record because it doesn't exist. The puny doesn't exist. Yeah, that's why they don't autograph anything. They don't put their seals on it. They don't put their names on it because they don't exist. They were never active participants doing anything in the well of the court. You can only have a court if everybody is in a geometric level playing field.
Right. Wow.
The point is that they have done damage. And it doesn't matter if you have damaged in the public, which is public safety violations, whether you have damaged things in the private, which is damaged private citizens. It doesn't matter if they have done damage in their secret societies, because damage is damage, whether you do it in the secret, in the public, or the private. And all of these things carry sentences. There are consequences for every politician, every judge. And don't think there are hundreds of thousands of them. There is enough room in FEMA camps for all of them. And that's the horror that they are now facing because of the federal postal court systems, the ability to put people into these FEMA camps. What I'm saying to you, when you lie to all the people all the time, which is the position they find themselves in now, it's inevitable the general public, that the federal postal court system have caught them by, as it were, by their testicles. Another word for testicles is testimony. And since we have seen and witnessed them opening their mouths, telling lies, being belligerent, and causing damage, there are consequences. And they have to go into a penitentiary. They have to perform their penance in a custodial manner, okay, which are FEMA camps. As we do this, this is the 3rd of March 2021. How many people know that Donald John Trump is still the president of the United States? They are not aware of it. Biden is only there as the dangling participle verb that is incapable of coherent speech. He is capable of coherent speech. He is just acting, just as he is an acting president,
Yes.
president incumbent. He's an acting president, which means that he is an actor acting as the president, passing acts as if they were law.
Yeah.
It's all in the language, and the continuation of evidence within that language is so profound, the general public can't miss it. The politicians and the lawyers and the judges and the courts have all been put in a position, thanks to the titans, of having to lie all the time to all the people. And in the world of psychology, that means the general public will waken up to their lies. Because what is the calculation? You can only lie to some of the people some of the time. If you ever lie to all the people all the time, your days are numbered. The images the general public have is their own. But as long as it's coherent and it is congruent to what I am saying, then I have got my message across.